All right. So sunlight hours analysis. This is found under. Um, oh, it's gonna keep pointing me there. That's right. It should be under environmental analysis. Ladybug sunlight hours analysis. Okay. So this one is a little bit more complex than the one we were trying to do, but just like most of the things here in Ladybug, it's not all that complex. So what it's going to look at is it needs a north direction, and then it needs a geometry to test, and then it's going to need what's called context. And if you read the description, it says context geometry that could block sunlight to the test geometry. Okay, so that's really important because certain geometry is going to receive the test, and then other geometry is going to be the blocking geometry. Those have to be in B-reps or a mesh. And then don't worry so much about grid size or anything like that for now. Generally speaking, there won't be that much that we need to change right now. But let's start plugging them in. One thing that we do need to do is create a ground plane. So I'm just going to go back up into my top view, and I'm going to create a plane. Looks like this. I don't really care how, straight or rectilinear it is here. So grab your B-rep component, and I'm going to set, let's see. So geometry is going to ask us for geometry for which sunlight hours analysis will be conducted, and then context is going to be mesh or a list of B-reps meshes. I think, well, we'll try it out and then we'll change it, but geometry is going to be I think you could actually do them all.
I want to risk it.
Yeah, we'll do them all.
Oh. Wait, did you just set multiple?
Yeah, set multiple. And then context, I think we'll just plug all of them into both and let it tell us when there's an error. So when I plug that into both, it should test certain geometry, and then it should project the actual analysis onto all of the geometry that's relevant. The other thing that we're going to need is the sun vector as a list, and so that one is right here. So I'll plug that in there. Let's see, run it toggle. That's going to be a Boolean function. So we'll need to add a Boolean trigger for that. Have I talked to you guys yet about Booleans? I don't know that I did. I talked to you a little bit about the fact that a Boolean can be read as either true or false, or 0 or 1. Or it could just be a little trigger like this right here. Boolean toggle. Says false, and I plug it in there, and then when you want to run it, you double click it and it'll run. I'm not sure if we have all the information we need right now. Not bake it, not project name. This might run. It won't run. What do we need? Set up both the grid size and distance from the base surface. Okay, so grid size is telling us a number in Rhino model units that represents the average size of the grid cell. Okay, this is important. So what this is doing is it's breaking down, it's basically breaking down all the surfaces of this model into little squares or triangles for the mesh, and then it's rendering each one of those. So let's say, for instance, I have a surface like this, and I need to break it down into little squares because my shadow is being cast across my building like that. Okay, so all of those squares get rendered. The other ones do not. It's an easier way of lightening the load of calculation, because what you'll find is a lot of these definitions really do take a long time to process. So the smaller your grid cell size, the longer it'll take by an exponential increase with every step. Okay, so the grid size here, remember we're operating in feet and our building is rather large, so I'm probably going to break mine down to, say, I'm going to start with 10 feet. for now. So there's going to be a 10-foot cell across the entire thing. And plug that in. And then distance from base, I actually forget what this one is. Number in Rhino model units that represents the offset distance of the test point grid from the input test geometry. Sunlight hours analysis done for the correct side. I'm not exactly sure, but let's just put a... Is this measured in a vector? Nah, let's just do a small figure here. Let's just do a value of 1 and see if it operates. It doesn't give you any tips or anything about what's going to be best. So, there we go. Why is it that color? That's weird. Anyway, let's go to perspective, and that's not doing what I thought it would. Let me go back to a reference. All right, guys, let's continue on. So here's everything that I plugged into these two components. For some reason, it wasn't behaving well when my base plane was flat, which actually still to this day doesn't make sense to me because that's not quite what I recall. But I'll show you what I actually plugged in. So I'll turn this stuff on, and I'll turn this off. All right, so every bit of my geometry went into this top one. So if I turn that off and I turn this off, you'll see that the top elements are up there. And something still seems a little funky. I think I have a double element in there. But anyway, this one happens to be just the base plane. Okay, so I mean, even now theoretically that shouldn't be an issue. But anyway, this is what I plugged in. And what it actually came to here is sort of a working thing. Let me turn the preview back on for this. Okay, so there's my geometry. Okay, you kind of can see it, but you kind of can't, right? I want you to be able to see it. So there's let's go to wires. And this thing, what it's going to do is it's going to take your BREP wireframe. It's kind of a faster way of doing what we were doing before with deconstruct BREP. Just didn't want to give you too much yet. But anyway, what wires is going to do is it's going to take these BREPs and it's going to give you the edges so that you can see it. It's kind of nifty. But anyway, so now you can actually see your buildings as you spin around and you start to adjust the shadows. So if you're doing a shade and shadow analysis, here's your plan. And you can just start to slide your time of day. It'll take a while to update each step. Usually sliders here don't really work out that well. You usually want to change the actual number each time. Sliders just really aren't great. I probably shouldn't have done that. It's just trying to process too much. Your colors might be different depending on your legend parameters.
I got nada.
Oh, okay. I'll come check out if you guys aren't getting this. Looks like I froze anyway, so. Yeah. So you got to be careful not to use sliders. At this stage, I would probably suggest getting rid of the sliders and moving to static numbers. But anyway, there it goes. It updated. So that's kind of the gist of it. I'm going to come around and troubleshoot with each of you before I continue on to the next step.